Hari Om. Today we will start with the final chapter of Bhagavad Geeta, that is chapter 18. In the previous chapter, Krishna said that those who perform actions are of three types, in accordance with their sattvic, rajasic or tamasic nature. Thus, their faith, F-A-I-T-H, is also in accordance to their sattvic, rajasic or tamasic nature. And based on this, they practice the four sadhanas of ahara, food, the type of food they eat, yajnas, how they perform their rituals and prayers, dhanam, how they give charity, and tapas, how they maintain austerities. Now, in this chapter, Krishna wants to say that the state of sannyasa or renunciation. Here, renunciation of action is not physically renouncing actions, but with what attitude they perform actions is also based on individual's nature, which can be sattvic, rajasic or tamasic. One who practices sattvic renunciation of actions will attain the right mindset to be eligible for the path of Jnana Yoga and will in turn transcend the three gunas and be a gunatit or sthita prajna or jivan mukta and will ultimately attain moksha. Also, chapter 18 is the final and also the longest chapter in the Gita. And in this chapter, Krishna will summarize all the key points of the past 17 chapters. So whatever are the main points which were given in the past 17 chapters of the Gita, Krishna will again touch on them in chapter 18. So let us now move on to chapter 18 and look at the first verse. The first verse is a question itself from Arjuna, and he seeks clarification from Krishna about sannyasa and tyaga. Sannyasa and tyaga both directly translated mean to renounce or to give up. But what exactly is to be renounced? And to most people, the concept of renunciation means to give up all possessions and relationships and take to a life of withdrawal or seclusion involving scriptural study and meditation by concentrating on study of the scriptures and meditation. So by way of answering this question, Sri Krishna will categorize renunciation as being of three types, sattvic, rajasic and tamasic. Also, to answer this question, Sri Krishna will cover the primary teachings of the Gita, which he has given in chapters 3 to 17. So chapter 18 can be said to be a summary of the Gita. Another thing to be noted is that it is ironic that when Arjuna was in exile for 12 years in the forest, when conditions to follow life of sannyasa were ideal, where there was ample time for him to study the scriptures, engage in meditation and contemplation, Arjuna instead engaged his time in practicing archery and burning with revenge, waiting for an opportunity to do battle with the Kauravas and kill all of them. And when that opportunity came and he was on the battlefield ready to take the revenge on the Kauravas, suddenly thoughts of sannyasa arose, because he did not want to kill his beloved gurus and elders and friends and relatives who were on the opposite side, and thus he envisioned a life of sannyasa to avoid engaging in warfare. And if at that moment Krishna were to speak about the glories of the traditional sannyasa, Arjuna would have immediately abandoned the battlefield and immediately taken up sannyasa. Although sannyasa is a noble goal of human life, however, one must not take to sannyasa out of dejection, frustration, or to avoid duties and responsibilities. Thus, one must mentally be prepared and let sannyasa become a natural progression. However, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna wants to give us another side of what is meant by renunciation, and what Krishna wants to say is that renunciation need not necessarily mean physically giving up possessions, relationships, etc. Renunciation can also mean the right way of practicing renunciation can also be interpreted as discharging all our duties and responsibilities, but with a change in attitude. And we will see what is that. So in the first verse, Arjuna addresses Sri Krishna with three different names. He addresses him as Mahabaho, which means mighty arm, Rishikesha, master of the senses, and Kesini Sudana, killer of the demon Keshi. Now, if an asura or demon comes, only the mighty armed person can do battle with that demon. To gain the strength to kill asura, one must be a master of senses, one who leads a disciplined life. So asuras who have great power can only be defeated by divine power. How do these three names apply to us? To kill the demonic tendencies in us, we need to be well equipped with the right sadhana. We need to have the right weapons. And right sadhana can only be perfected when one leads a disciplined life. Thus, all three qualities, Mahabaho, Rishikesha, and Kesini Sudana, must be in us in order to fight the external attractions and distractions. We need to have internal control against WMD, or what is called weapons of mass distraction, that is the world. So Arjuna says to Lord Krishna, Ichhami, I want to veditum, I want to know. What do I want to know? Tattvam, the truth, the real nature, pratak, severally or in detail. Of what? Two things Arjuna asks Krishna to clarify. What is sannyasa, which means path of renunciation or giving up, and tyagasya, which also means renunciation. They are two different Sanskrit words that have the same meaning. Arjuna wants to know, is there a difference in these two paths, or are they one and the same? So from verses 2 to 12, Krishna answers Arjuna's question. Krishna's view is that both sannyasa and tyaga mean one and the same thing. Thus, Krishna uses both these terms interchangingly in the rest of the chapter and divides the path of sannyasa or tyaga into three types: sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. Krishna also states that doing all our duties and responsibilities in accordance with time and place, with the right attitude, dedicating all actions to God is sattvic renunciation or sattvic sannyasa or sattvic tyaga. However, giving up performance of our duties and responsibilities or performing them with the wrong attitude or grudgingly is rajasic and tamasic renunciation. Renunciation of works based on the wrong understanding. Thus, sattvic sannyasa is performing all duties and responsibilities with the right attitude. What are you renouncing? Karma phalam. So that is the fruit or the result of your actions. Duties and responsibilities are performed not for material growth and rewards, but for inner spiritual growth, which is inner purification, mental purification, tranquility of the mind. Before Krishna answers Arjuna's question, he wants to state what is the views of learned people. Now, why is this necessary? It is obvious that Arjuna has consistently heard about these two terms being used by enlightened beings, and he is unclear if they mean the same or different things. Thus, Krishna If Krishna were to give his explanation, then Arjuna will question that he has heard differently from others about sannyasa and tyaga. So before giving his opinion, Krishna wants to state what is the prevailing view among the wise people in verses 2 and 3. So renunciation is generally accepted as giving up all actions, duties and responsibilities. Practically speaking, this is the most hardest thing to do. Giving up all actions and sitting doing nothing physically, the mind goes into more turmoil. As the saying goes, an idle mind is a devil's workshop. So if we look at the karma, kanda portion of the Vedas, karmas are defined into several types. One is called nishkama karma, where all actions are done without any motive or selfish or personal gains. So this nishkama karma is of two types. One is known as nitya karma, that is the daily duties and responsibilities of everyone, depending on the time and place. And the second is called naimitika karma, which are prayers and duties arising on specific occasions. Example, prayers for departed ancestors, prayers for birth of newborn child, etc. All these must be performed without any motive for personal gain, but because that is our duty and it has to be done. That is called nishkama karma. Second type is kamya karma, which are actions or rituals done for materialistic selfish gains. The third is nishida karma, or prohibited or wrong actions. And the final one is known as prayaschit karma, which is remedial action done to mitigate the effects of an earlier wrong action performed. So what do this group of wise people say in verse 2? They say, avoid kamya karma and nishida karma. Avoid actions based on selfish motives and avoid any actions which are forbidden by the scriptures. Only engage in sakama karma. So here what we call the way they explain it is that here they say in verse number 2, so Lord Krishna says, thus the kavayaha means the learned ones, meaning those who are capable of discerning subtle knowledge, those who have a superior intellect. Viduhu, these wise ones, they declare sannyasa, renunciation, to be nyasam, giving up of karmanam, actions performed, kamyanam, with the desire for some materialistic results. So these wise people say giving up kamya karmas, selfish motivated actions, is known as sannyasa. That means doing all kinds of prayers, rituals to attain worldly things should be given up. Performing all duties and responsibilities with selfish motives also should be given up. This will include prohibited actions also. What type of actions are therefore allowed? Only those actions with selfless motives and dedicated to God that lead to purification of mind. That is known as what we call the real type of renunciation. So, according to one group of people, giving up selfish motivated actions done for punyam, awards, rewards, expectations is defined as sannyas. Then what is tyaga? Krishna says another view is vichakshanaha. Vichakshanaha are great masters or teachers. Prahu, they call or define tyaga, renunciation, as sarva phala tyagam karma, giving up all the results of the fruits of the actions. So there's one view about sannyasa, there's another view about tyaga. In the first opinion, sannyasa was said to be renunciation of any action that is backed by selfish desire. In the second opinion, tyaga is you can do all your duties and responsibilities and rituals to attain certain results, but do not hanker for the results. Whatever the outcome of the result, whether it is favorable or unfavorable, you surrender that result to the Lord and accept it gracefully in your mind. So sannyasa is giving up actions motivated by selfish desire. Tyaga is doing actions but don't hanker for the results. Leave that in the hands of the Lord. So this is the difference in the two that Krishna has explained. Now, in verse 3, Krishna says there are another group of people. One group says sannyasa is giving up all actions, every action, as all actions lead to bondage. So one should give up everything. Another group in verse 3 says you can give up all actions, but 3 actions you must never give up. That is yajna, dana, tapa. So now what we call is, these are the two differing views again. So here what Lord says in verse number 3, Eke, someone or group of Manishinaha, another group of learned people, philosophers, Prahu, they say, Iti karma, that all karmas without exception, duties, rituals, pujas, everything must be tyajam, everything must be given up. So give up all types of action. Why? As all karmas lead to bondage. So they say karmas doshavat. All karmas, all actions are doshavat, means they have defects. So not that what we call defects here means that they lead to some form of bondage. So we should give up every type of action. Then the Lord says, Apare, there is another group of people, they say that sannyasa is giving up of certain actions, but there are some actions that must never be given up. So the Lord says, Na tyajam, do not give up 3 types of actions. This group of people believe yajna, dana, tapa. Yajna means prayers or rituals. Dhanam is charity, tapa is austerities. So this is the opinion of learned people which Krishna has covered in verses number 2 and 3. Now, sannyasa as presented in the Upanishads is a formal type of renunciation where a person breaks up all relationships with family, with what we call society, gives up all possession and enters into an ashram for the exclusive pursuit of moksha. So a person can take up this type of sannyasa directly, either from brahmachari, you can go to sannyas, from grihas, as a householder, you can go to sannyas, or vanaprashta, as a retired person, you can also go to sannyas. But 2 conditions must be observed in this type of sannyas. We are talking about formal sannyas. This person must not entertain any other goal in life other than moksha. He must have no interest in possessions, worldly pleasures, or even a desire for gaining heaven as a reward. So he must only dedicate life to Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasam. Strong desire for moksha must be there. Second quality is right qualification. He must have emotional strength to remain steadfast on this path, because there are many sacrifices to be made. So there is, of course, you do not know, where your next meal is coming from. You have no financial security. You do not know whether tomorrow you will have a roof over your head. So therefore, you must be very mentally prepared for this kind of sannyasa or renunciation. And then one must approach a guru and then what we call serve the guru and surrender to him. So, however, in the Gita, Krishna does not present such a style of sannyasa. He instead presents how a karma yogi, how a householder, doing all his duties and responsibilities, can also be a sannyasi. So how can you be a renunciate while doing your duties? This is what Krishna presents. And he does not differentiate between sannyasa and tyaga. Both mean the same, renunciation. So Krishna will just say that renunciation is of three types. So here in verse number 4, Krishna addresses Arjuna as Bharata Sattama, the noblest among the descendants of Bharata, that is Arjuna. He says, Srunu, listen to me, to listen to me of my Nischayam, firm conclusion. So I'm going to now give you what is my conclusion. Tatra, regarding Tyaga. So I may use Tyaga, I may use Sannyasa, they both mean the same thing. So just don't get confused about this. So Krishna says, listen to me, I will give you my firm conclusion regarding Tyaga. So, of course, Bhagwan's conclusion is the most conclusive and definite opinion which we should follow. So, he also addresses Arjuna by the name of Purusha Vyagra, which means greatest among men, to indicate to Arjuna that you are of great lineage, you are of excellent character. So he is he is glorifying Arjuna, telling him that you are well qualified to listen and to understand this, and you are also qualified to practice this form of renunciation. So the Lord says, Tyagaha, renunciation, is samprakirtita, clearly declared as Trivida, as of being of three types. So renunciation is of three types. This is what Krishna is saying. What are the three types? Sattvic renunciation, where actions are performed but there is an absence of desire for results. Rajasic renunciation is where there is a selfish desire for results and actions, and they are performed with great pain and struggle to attain results. Tamasic renunciation is where action is avoided or dropped due to wrong understanding of renunciation. So now, in chapter 6 verse 1, Krishna has described a person in whom knowledge of the self has not dawned, but in whom has arisen the yearning for supreme knowledge. So Sri Krishna says you must first follow by fulfilling all the duties and responsibilities, renounce the fruits of action, and then there will arise in you a thirst to acquire knowledge. So there are what we call in the Vedas or in the Upanishads, two types of sannyasa. One is called Vividdhisha sannyasa, which means practicing of renunciation of action for the sake of attaining self-knowledge. So a person's mind is not pure, in him has not arisen yet self-knowledge, so he practices what is known as Vividdhisha sannyasa in order to purify the mind and then go on to this path of knowledge. In second type of sannyasa is called Vidvat sannyasa, which is a person has already attained enlightenment, but then he also performs renunciation of action, but he is equipped with knowledge. So there are two different types of sannyasa. Now let us see what the Lord's opinion is about sannyasa. So the Lord says in verse number 5, Yakya, which means sacrifice or performing prayers or rituals, Dhanam, charity, in various forms of giving away or sharing your money, your clothes, your food, your knowledge, and Tapaha, performing austerities. So the Lord says these three actions, Yajna, Dana, Tapa, Na Tyajam, should never be given up. Lord is very clear that every person is required or should not give up these three Yajna, Dana, Tapa. On the other hand, the Lord says, Eva Karyam, they must be performed, meaning they are compulsory actions. So not only that we mustn't give up, but we must make sure that we perform all these three type of actions. So it is not a choice that shall I just do yajna and give up dhanam and tapa. No, all three must be performed by every individual person. So what is the difference? Yajna, prayers and rituals, is our duty to thank the Lord. Dhanam is our duty to society. Tapa is duty we owe to ourselves to discipline ourselves. So Yajna Dana Tapa means we take care of our responsibilities to God, to the society, and to ourselves. It covers everything. So the Lord says, Yajna Dana Tapaha, they must be practiced. Why? He tells us the reason in this verse number 5. He says, these three are Pavanani. They are the purifiers of Manishinam, of every being. So by engaging in these three Yajna Dana Tapa, you will, with the right attitude, will purify your mind, purify the body, the senses, the intellect. And when these organs become purified, there will automatically arise an awakening for knowledge. So, this is what Krishna says in verse number 5. Then he goes on to explain more about renunciation in verse number 6 also. So the Lord says, now, Kamya karmas, as we mentioned earlier, are karmas done with selfish motive or desire. They will also bring us results. Kamya karmas will also give us some punyam when we do some prayers and rituals to attain heaven. It will also materialize. But what it won't give us is that it won't give us any inner purification. It won't purify our minds. So it won't advance us spiritually. So we won't progress spiritually if we do prayers and rituals and undertake our actions with a selfish motive. So therefore, what is Krishna's conclusion here is, he says is that I am now going to give you me nishchitam, my firm and uttamam supreme matam conclusion about sannyasa. So the Lord is saying, I'm going to give you my firm conclusion, right? So instead of listening to so many different views out there, we should just accept Lord's view as the final and concluding definition of sannyasa. So the Lord says, etani, meaning these three karmani, these three actions that was mentioned in the previous verse, Yajna Dana Tapa, including all our other duties, he says, kartavyani, have to be performed. So he emphasizes very strongly on this, that they have to be, they are compulsory, they must be performed. But what is the attitude? That they must perform. Now, if you look at our scriptures, they never say, they never specify what amount of charity must you do, what quantity of flowers must you offer to the Lord. But what is always emphasized is having the right attitude. So, especially we refer to that very famous verse, chapter 9, verse 26, where the Lord says, offer me one flower, one leaf, one fruit, or little water, but offer it with sincere devotion. So Krishna says, perform all these actions, Yajna Dana Tapa, but Sangam Tyaktva, you must give up what we call attachment. That is what you should give up. So Sangam Tyaktva, what must you give up? Attachment. That means you should give up this attitude, I am the doer. If you are thinking of yourself as this body-mind equipment, then the ego is at work. But if you are thinking of yourself as an instrument in the hands of the Lord, and you undertake these three sadhanas, then definitely you will avoid attachment to these three actions. Secondly, the Lord says in this verse, Phalani, you must also give up you must not be attached to the results. Meaning, do not have any worldly expectations or to attain heaven or to even get some rewards in your next birth. So, the only thing is that we must expect is that these actions we are doing with the surrender for the Lord to the Lord is for our inner purification. So that means as a karta, as a doer, don't have karma sangha, don't be attached to the action, don't consider yourself as a doer, consider yourself as an instrument in the hands of the Lord. And when you receive the result, You must have equipoise mind, because the result may be favorable or the result may be unfavorable, but we have to accept both type of results with a balanced mind. So the Lord has given us now the key to performing actions with the right attitude. That is very, very important. So when we come back with our next session, we will carry on from chapter 18, verse number 7. Hari Om Tat Sat.